I said fine. That's what they wanted to hear, right? My kids, standing in my living room like a corporate tribunal, telling me I needed to take a step back and reflect on my behavior. Evan had his arms crossed. Megan kept glancing at her husband Jordan like he was feeding her lines through an invisible earpiece. Laura sat in the corner, silent, watching. "We're doing this because we care about you, Dad," Megan said, her HR voice, the one she used when she was about to fire someone. "You've been difficult lately, at work, at home. People are noticing." Difficult. That was the word they'd landed on. I'd been with the company for 26 years, promoted 6 people who now made more than me, built systems that still ran the place, and now I was difficult. "What exactly do you want?" I asked. Evan stepped forward. He was wearing one of those slim-cut suits that made him look like he was playing dress-up. "We want you to take some time off, a few months, no contact with the office, give everyone some space. And apologize," Megan added, "to me, publicly, for the way you spoke to me in front of the warehouse staff last week." I remembered that day. She'd overridden my scheduling protocol because it didn't align with new HR guidelines. 3 shipments went out late. I'd told her she was acting like a middle manager with a god complex. I'd said it in front of 4 people. "You want me to apologize for being right?" I said. Jordan cleared his throat. He'd been quiet until now, standing behind Megan like a lawyer at a deposition. "Thomas, I think what they're trying to say is that this is about optics. You're not wrong about the logistics, but the delivery—" "I don't remember asking you, Jordan." His jaw tightened. "Good." I wanted him uncomfortable. This was my house, my family. He was just the guy who married into it 3 years ago and suddenly thought he had voting rights. Megan's face went red. "See? This is exactly what we're talking about. You can't just—" "Fine," I said. The room went quiet. "Fine what?" Evan asked. "I'll take the time off. I'll apologize. Whatever you need." I looked at Megan. "I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. I'll be more mindful of optics going forward." It wasn't the apology she wanted. I could see that. She wanted tears. She wanted me broken down, admitting I'd been a tyrant, a relic, a problem, but she also wanted this over. Evan was nodding like he'd just closed a merger. Jordan looked suspicious, but relieved. Laura stood up. "I think we're done here." She said it gently, but it wasn't a suggestion. My wife didn't waste words. After 30 years of marriage, I'd learned that when Laura spoke, people listened or regretted it later. They filed out. Megan hugged me at the door, stiff and performative. Evan shook my hand. Jordan gave me a nod that was supposed to be respectful, but came off as patronizing. When the door closed, Laura turned to me. "You're not actually going to do this, are you?" she asked. I said fine. I meant it. She studied my face for a moment, then smiled. It was the smile she used when she saw something nobody else did. "Good," she said. "Then let's get to work." I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry. Anger was easy. Anger was what they expected. No, I was awake because I was planning. See, here's the thing about being underestimated. People stop watching you. They stop thinking you're capable of anything except what they've already seen. Evan thought I was a dinosaur who couldn't adapt to modern management styles. Megan thought I was emotionally stunted and couldn't navigate office politics. Jordan thought I was too old to understand how things really worked. They were all wrong. I'd been watching them for years. Every passive-aggressive email Megan sent, every corner-cutting shortcut Evan took, every billable hour Jordan inflated. I noticed. I didn't say anything because it wasn't my job to parent adult children, but I noticed, and I kept records. Laura came into the bedroom around 2 in the morning. She was still dressed, still had her laptop open. "Find anything?" I asked. "Plenty," she said, "but nothing we didn't already know. Megan's been building a case against you for 6 months. Performance reviews you never saw. Incident reports from people who don't even work in your department. She's thorough." She learned from me. She learned the wrong lessons. Laura sat down on the edge of the bed. Her face was lit by the screen, blue and ghostly. Evan's worse. He's been positioning himself to take over your projects. He's already talking to your direct reports, telling them you're stepping down voluntarily for health reasons. Health reasons? Stress-related. He's very concerned about your well-being. I laughed. It came out bitter. How considerate. Jordan's the wild card, Laura continued. He's sloppy, overconfident. He thinks being external counsel makes him untouchable, but he's been mixing personal and professional advice for months. There are emails, text messages. He's been telling Megan and Evan exactly how to maneuver you out. Conflict of interest? At minimum. But it gets better. He's billing the company for family strategy sessions, coding them as corporate compliance consultations. I sat up. You're sure? I'm always sure. Laura worked in compliance, not for my company, thankfully. But she understood systems. She understood how organizations protected themselves and how they failed. And she understood that the worst thing you could do to a company was make them realize they'd enabled something they couldn't defend. So what's the play? I asked. She closed the laptop. You're going to do exactly what they asked. Take the time off, stay quiet, let them think they won. And then? And then we see how well they manage without you. The next morning I wrote the email. Short, professional, no emotion. Effective immediately, I'll be taking a voluntary leave of absence to focus on personal matters. I appreciate the opportunity to have served this company and look forward to returning when the time is right. Thomas Hale. I sent it to my supervisor, to HR, to Megan, to Evan. Then I logged out of my company email for the last time. Laura drove me to the office to clear out my desk. It was early, before most people arrived. The building was quiet except for the hum of the HVAC system and the distant sound of a floor buffer in the lobby. My office was on the 3rd floor, corner unit, window overlooking the freight yard. I'd been there for 12 years. Before that, I'd been in a cubicle. Before that, a shared desk in the warehouse office. I opened the door. The desk was already empty, not just cleaned, stripped. My nameplate was gone. My files were gone. The photos of Evan and Megan from their high school graduations, gone. Even the coffee mug Laura had given me on our 20th anniversary was missing. There was a folder on the desk, Manila, standard issue. I picked it up. Inside was a termination letter, dated yesterday. Dear Thomas Hale, effective immediately, your employment with Regional Logistics Services is terminated due to ongoing performance concerns and violations of company conduct policies. Your final paycheck and benefits information will be mailed to your address on file. Please surrender all company property, including access badges and equipment, to HR by end of business today. It was signed by Megan. I stood there for a long time, not moving, not thinking, just standing. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. I turned. Megan was standing in the doorway. She was smiling. Not a fake smile. Not a HR smile. A real one. The kind of smile you make when you've won something. Dad, she said, I didn't expect to see you here this early. Neither did I. She glanced at the folder in my hand. Her smile faltered, just for a second. I was going to call you this afternoon, explain everything. But since you're here... Explain what, exactly? The company felt it was best to make a clean break. You weren't happy. We weren't happy. This way, everyone can move forward. This was dated yesterday, I said, before I sent my email. She didn't flinch. There were discussions. The decision was made in your best interest. My best interest? Yes. I looked at her, really looked at her. She was 31 years old, smart, capable, ruthless in a way that would have made me proud if it wasn't currently being aimed at me. She'd planned this, not for days, for months, maybe longer. Who else knows? I asked. That's not really... Who else knows, Megan? She hesitated. The executive team, HR leadership, Evan. Not the board? This was an operational decision. It didn't require board approval. And Jordan? Her face gave her away. Just a flicker of something. Uncertainty. Guilt. Jordan provided legal guidance on the termination process to make sure everything was compliant. I see. I set the folder back on the desk, took one last look around the office that wasn't mine anymore. Then I walked past her, into the hallway. "Dad," she called after me. "I know this is hard, but it's for the best. You'll see." I didn't turn around. Laura was waiting in the parking lot. She saw my face and didn't ask, just unlocked the doors. "They fired me," I said. "Yesterday, before I even sent the email." She nodded. "I know. How?" "I got a call from Linda in HR last night. She wanted to warn me. Off the record." "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because you needed to see it yourself. You needed to see Megan's face." She was right. If Laura had told me, I might have doubted it, might have convinced myself there was some misunderstanding. But I'd seen Megan smile. I'd heard her justify it. There was no misunderstanding. "What now?" I asked. Laura started the car. "Now we go home, and we start building." That night, I went through everything. Every file I'd backed up over the years, every policy memo, every email chain I'd archived. I wasn't looking for smoking guns, I was looking for patterns. See, most people think revenge is about doing something big and dramatic, exposing corruption, uncovering fraud. But that's movie logic. In real life, revenge is about documentation. It's about knowing the rules better than the people who broke them. I found my first thread around midnight. 3 years ago, Evan had submitted a budget proposal for warehouse expansion. It was approved, funded, executed. The problem was, he'd inflated the contractor costs by about 15% and pocketed the difference through a shell consulting LLC he'd set up. It wasn't illegal exactly. The company allowed external consulting as long as it didn't conflict with your primary role. But Evan had never disclosed the LLC, never filed the conflict of interest paperwork, never declared the income on his internal financial disclosure forms. Small oversight, easy to explain away. Unless someone was looking. I kept digging. Megan's HR files were cleaner, but there were gaps. Complaints that disappeared. Investigations that concluded too quickly. She'd built herself a reputation as being tough but fair, but the data told a different story. People who crossed her didn't get fired. They got reassigned, pushed out, quietly managed into quitting. One name kept coming up, Rachel Diaz. She'd been a senior recruiter, filed a formal complaint against Megan 2 years ago for retaliation after she'd questioned a hiring decision. The complaint was investigated by Megan's department. Conclusion: unfounded. Rachel left the company 3 months later. I wondered where Rachel was now. Jordan was the easiest. He'd been sloppy from the start, mixing personal texts with professional emails, using his work account to coordinate family strategy, billing the company for hours he'd spent advising Megan and Evan on how to handle me. There was a text thread from 4 months ago. Jordan to Megan: "Your dad's asking questions about the Peterson contract. Stall him, I'll handle it." Another one from 6 weeks ago. Evan to Jordan: "Dad's not going to step down voluntarily, we need to force it." Jordan's reply: "Leave it to me. I'll talk to Megan about the termination optics." They'd been planning this for months, and they'd done it in writing. Laura came downstairs around 3 in the morning. She set a cup of coffee next to me without a word. I took it. "How bad?" she asked. "Bad enough." "Enough to hurt them?" I looked up at her. "Enough to end them." She smiled. Before we go any further, hit the hype button, take a second to subscribe and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? The first rule of revenge is patience. The second rule is precision. The third rule is making sure everyone sees what you want them to see. I spent the next week doing nothing. Stayed home, didn't call anyone, didn't post anything on social media. Didn't send angry emails or show up at the office demanding answers. I was the picture of a defeated middle-aged man who'd been put out to pasture. Laura went to work every morning like nothing had changed. She had her own career, her own clients. Nobody questioned it. Nobody connected her calm professionalism to what was happening at my former employer. But at night, we worked. She pulled contract files from her own databases. Nothing illegal. Everything she accessed was either public record or covered under her standard compliance review processes. She wasn't looking for my company specifically. She was just doing her job. If my company happened to come up in that work, well, that was just coincidence. Jordan's LLC is registered in Delaware, she said one night. Standard corporate veil setup. But he listed himself as the registered agent. And guess what he used for the business address? His home? His office, at the firm that represents my company. I sat back. That's a conflict. That's several conflicts. He's supposed to disclose any business interests that might overlap with client work. He didn't. And he's been billing your company for consultations that should have been flagged as personal conflicts. Can you prove it? She slid a printout across the table. Already did. I scanned the document. It was a cross-reference analysis. Every hour Jordan had billed to regional logistics services in the past 18 months, mapped against text message timestamps and email metadata. The overlap was unmistakable. He'd been billing the company for hours spent strategizing against me with my own children. This is good, I said, but it's not enough. I know. We need something public, something they can't bury in an internal review. I'm working on it. The next morning, I called Rachel Diaz. I found her through LinkedIn. She was working as an HR director for a healthcare startup in Denver now. Doing well, from the looks of it. I sent her a connection request with a simple message. Rachel, this is Thomas Hale. I used to work at Regional Logistics. I'd like to talk to you about Megan if you have a moment. She accepted within an hour. Her reply came 10 minutes later. I wondered if anyone would ever ask. We talked on the phone that afternoon. She was cautious at first, professional. But when I explained what had happened to me, her tone changed. She did the same thing to me, Rachel said. Different specifics, same playbook. I questioned a hiring decision she made. Not even a big deal. Just asked if we'd followed protocol. Next thing I know, I'm being written up for insubordination, then late performance reviews, then a PIP. Performance improvement plan? Yeah, it was garbage, vague metrics. I knew what it was. She wanted me gone, but she wanted me to quit, so there wouldn't be unemployment or wrongful termination issues. Did you file a complaint? I did. It went nowhere. Megan investigated her own complaint. Shocker, she found nothing wrong with her behavior. I lasted 3 more months before I couldn't take it anymore. I quit, moved to Denver, started over. Do you have documentation? There was a pause. I kept everything, emails, performance reviews, the original complaint. I didn't know what to do with it, so I just held on to it. Would you be willing to share it? Another pause. Longer this time. Why? What are you planning? I'm planning to make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else. And you think you can do that? I know I can. She laughed. It was bitter. Good. Because she destroyed my career. I'm doing fine now, but it took me 2 years to rebuild my reputation. If you can hurt her, even a little, I'll help. She sent me the files that evening. 62 pages of documentation, complaint forms, email threads, performance reviews with handwritten notes in the margins. It was a master class in bureaucratic cruelty. I read through it twice. Then I sent it to Laura. This is solid, she said, but we need corroboration. One disgruntled former employee is easy to dismiss. We need a pattern. I'll find more. I did. Over the next 10 days, I contacted 14 former employees who'd left the company under Megan's watch. Not all of them responded. Some were still scared. Some didn't want to revisit the trauma. But 5 of them talked to me, and 3 of them sent documentation. Same story, different names. Megan built cases against people who challenged her. She used HR as a weapon, and she was very, very good at it. By the end of week 2, I had a file that was over 300 pages long. Patterns of retaliation, systematic misuse of authority, nothing criminal, nothing that would land her in jail, but everything that would destroy her professionally if it became public. Laura reviewed it with the dispassionate efficiency of someone who'd spent her career finding vulnerabilities in systems. "This is career-ending," she said. "If it gets out. It will. You're sure you want to do this? Once you start, there's no taking it back." I thought about Megan's smile, the way she'd stood in my office doorway, savoring her victory, the way she'd justified it, for the best, in my best interest. "I'm sure," I said. "Then we need to be smart about how we release it. If you just dump this online, it'll look like a vendetta. We need credibility. We need a platform." "I'm listening." "There's a journalist I know. Her name is Allison Porter. She covers corporate accountability and labor issues for the Regional Business Journal. She's been looking for a story about HR abuse in mid-sized companies. This would be perfect for her." "Can we trust her?" "She's not our friend, if that's what you mean. But she's ethical. If the documentation is solid, she'll run it, and she'll do it right. Set up a meeting." We met Allison at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory. She was younger than I expected, maybe 35, with sharp eyes and a notebook that was already half filled before we even started talking. Laura did most of the talking. She laid out the pattern, showed the emails, explained the context. Allison asked questions. Good questions. She didn't take anything at face value. "This is strong," Allison said finally. "But I need to verify it independently. I'll need to contact some of these former employees, get their permission to use their stories, and I'll need to give Regional Logistics a chance to respond." "How long will that take?" I asked. "A week, maybe 2. I'll move fast, but I have to do this right." "And if they threaten to sue you?" She smiled. "Let them. I've been sued before. It's never fun, but the truth is a pretty solid defense." We shook hands. Laura and I left. In the car, I asked, "Do you think she'll actually run it?" "Yes. Journalists like her don't walk away from stories like this. And if the company tries to bury it, they'll try, but they can't bury all of it. Too many people, too much documentation. The best they can do is damage control." Good. That night I did something I'd been avoiding. I drafted a post. Not for social media, not for some anonymous revenge forum, for the company's internal message board, the one employees use to share announcements, celebrate wins, ask questions. It was moderated, but only lightly. As long as you weren't posting anything obscene or threatening, it usually stayed up for at least a few hours before someone from corporate decided whether to remove it. I'd still had access. They'd deactivated my email, but they'd forgotten about the internal platform. Sloppy. Typical. I kept it simple. Factual. No emotions. No accusations. Just a statement. To my former colleagues, I want to clarify the circumstances of my departure from Regional Logistics Services. I was terminated without cause after 26 years of service. The termination letter was dated 1 day before I submitted my voluntary leave request, meaning the decision was made before I had any opportunity to respond to alleged performance concerns. I was not given a chance to defend myself or address these concerns. I was simply removed. If anyone has questions about this process or has experienced something similar, I encourage you to document your experiences and consult with legal counsel. Transparency and accountability matter. Thomas Hale. I read it 3 times. Made sure there was nothing defamatory, nothing false, just facts. Then I posted it, and went to bed. I woke up to 27 missed calls. The first one was from Evan. I didn't answer. The second was from Megan. Ignored. The third was from a number I didn't recognize, but the voicemail identified the caller as the company's head of legal, Patricia Lang. Her message was terse. "Mr. Hale, this is Patricia Lang from Regional Logistics Services. We need to speak immediately regarding your recent post on the internal communications platform. Please call me back as soon as possible." I didn't call back. Laura was already awake, scrolling through her phone. "It's blowing up," she said. "Your post has been shared on 6 different internal channels. People are commenting, asking questions. HR is trying to delete it, but people are taking screenshots." "How bad?" "For them? Catastrophic. Employees are talking about union representation. Someone leaked your post to a local news blog. It's going viral in the logistics community." I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Not quite satisfaction, not yet, but close. My phone rang again. Patricia Lang. This time I answered. "Mr. Hale, we need to discuss your post." "Hello, Patricia. What can I do for you?" Her voice was tight, controlled. "You need to remove that post immediately and issue a retraction." "Why would I do that?" "Because it contains false and misleading information that is damaging to the company's reputation." "Which part is false?" Silence. "Ms. Lang, I posted facts. I was terminated. The letter was dated before my voluntary leave. I wasn't given due process. Those are all verifiable. If you have documentation proving otherwise, I'd be happy to review it. This is a private personnel matter. You're violating your separation agreement." "I didn't sign a separation agreement." More silence. "You were provided with an agreement as part of your termination package." "I was provided with a termination letter. No agreement, no severance offer, no NDA, just a letter telling me I was fired." I could hear her breathing. She was realizing the mistake. Someone had assumed I'd sign. They'd drafted the paperwork but never actually sent it. Or maybe they had sent it, but I'd never received it. Either way, there was no enforceable agreement. "Mr. Hale, I'm going to ask you one more time. Take down the post." "Or what?" "Or we will pursue legal action for defamation and breach of confidentiality." "You're welcome to try, but I'd think very carefully before you do. Discovery would be very interesting." I hung up. Laura looked at me. "That was reckless." "Maybe, but they're panicking. When people panic, they make mistakes. They're going to come after you. Let them." 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time it was Jordan. I put it on speaker. "Thomas, it's Jordan. We need to talk." "About what?" "About the damage you're causing. To the company. To your family. To everyone." "I posted facts, Jordan. If facts are damaging, that's not my fault. You know what you're doing. You're trying to hurt Megan and Evan. You're trying to destroy their careers because you're bitter about your termination." "Am I?" "This isn't going to end the way you think it will. You're going to look like a disgruntled ex-employee with an axe to grind. Nobody's going to take you seriously. We'll see. Thomas, I'm trying to help you here. If you stop now, we can all move past this. We can negotiate a settlement, get you a severance package, a good reference. But if you keep pushing, this is going to get ugly." "It's already ugly, Jordan. You made sure of that." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I know about the billing fraud. I know you've been charging the company for hours spent strategizing against me. I know you never disclosed your conflicts of interest. And I know you're the one who told Megan and Evan how to set me up." The line went quiet. "You're bluffing," he said finally. "Am I?" "You can't prove any of that." "Can I?" He hung up. Laura was smiling now. "You're enjoying this?" "A little." "Good. You should. But remember, they're going to escalate. This is when things get dangerous." "Let them." She shook her head. "You're going to give me a heart attack. Not before I'm done." By the end of the day, my post had been deleted from the internal platform. But it didn't matter. Screenshots were everywhere. Local news outlets were starting to pick it up. Allison Porter called to say she'd been contacted by 3 more former employees who wanted to share their stories. The company issued a statement. Bland. Corporate. Regional Logistics Services is committed to fair and equitable treatment of all employees. We do not comment on individual personnel matters, but we stand by our employment practices and our compliance with all applicable labor laws. It was the kind of statement that said everything and nothing, but it was also a tell. They were in defensive mode. That night, Evan showed up at my house. I saw him through the window, standing on the porch, alone. No Megan, no Jordan, just him. He rang the doorbell. I didn't answer. He rang again, then knocked, then called my name. "Dad, I know you're in there. Please, just open the door." Laura was upstairs. I heard her footsteps. She came down, looked through the window, and shook her head. "Don't," she said. "I'm not." But Evan didn't leave. He stood there for 10 minutes, knocking, calling. Finally, he sat down on the porch steps, just sat there, waiting. An hour passed, then 2. At some point, Laura brought me coffee. We watched from the living room. Evan didn't move. He sat on the steps, staring at his phone, occasionally glancing at the door. "What's he doing?" I asked. "Trying to outlast you, trying to make you feel guilty." "It's not working." "Good." But it was working. A little. Not because I felt guilty, because I felt something else. Pity, maybe, or sadness. This was my son. I'd taught him to ride a bike, to throw a baseball, to balance a checkbook. And now he was sitting on my porch, trying to manipulate me into forgiving him. At hour 3, he stood up, walked to the door, knocked one more time. "Dad, I'm not leaving until we talk. I'll stay here all night if I have to." Laura looked at me. "Your call." I thought about it, weighed the options. Then I walked to the door and opened it. Evan looked relieved. "Thank you. You have 5 minutes. That's all I need." I didn't invite him in, just stood in the doorway. He stayed on the porch. "Jordan screwed up," Evan said. "I know that. We all know that. But he was trying to help. He wasn't trying to defraud anyone. He got too involved, too close to the situation. He billed the company to plan my termination. That's fraud. It's a gray area. It's not gray. It's black and white. He defrauded his client, and you helped him. I didn't know he was billing for those conversations. I swear, I thought he was just giving advice as family. That's still a conflict of interest. Maybe, but it's not criminal. No, just unethical." Evan ran a hand through his hair. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. Clothes rumpled. "Dad, I'm trying to fix this, but I need your help." "My help?" "Yes. If you drop the lawsuit, if you stop cooperating with the media, if you just let this go, I can fix it. I can make sure Jordan gets the help he needs. I can make sure Megan understands what went wrong. We can move past this." "Move past it?" "Yes." "And what about me? What about you? What do I get?" Evan hesitated. "I don't know. What do you want?" "I want an admission. I want you and Megan to admit you planned my termination. I want the company to admit they violated their own policies. I want Jordan to admit he committed fraud. And I want all of it in writing, public, permanent. That's never going to happen. Then we have nothing to talk about. Dad, please, you're destroying us, all of us. Is that really what you want?" I looked at him, really looked at him. He was scared, desperate, and he still didn't understand. "You destroyed me first," I said. "You just didn't think I'd fight back. We made a mistake, I admit that, but mistakes can be fixed. Not this one." "Why not?" "Because you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. You chose to lie, you chose to coordinate, you chose to smile when you thought you'd won, and now you're choosing to pretend none of it matters." "It does matter. That's why I'm here." "No, you're here because you're losing. If you were winning, you wouldn't be sitting on my porch. You'd be ignoring me, just like you did for the past 6 months." He didn't respond. "Go home, Evan. Tell Megan and Jordan I said hello, and tell them I'll see them in court." "Dad." I closed the door. He stood there for another minute. Then I heard his footsteps, the car door, the engine. He left. Laura came downstairs. That was hard. Yeah, but necessary. I know. Do you think he'll try again? Probably. But it won't work. He doesn't have anything left to bargain with. He has family. That's always been your weak spot. Not anymore. She touched my arm. I'm proud of you. For what? For not breaking. I'm not done yet. I know, but you're close. Evan's deposition was scheduled for the following Wednesday. David had prepared for it the same way he'd prepared for Jordan's. Emails, billing records, timelines, everything cross-referenced and indexed. Evan showed up on time, dressed in a suit, calm, controlled. He'd clearly been coached. David started with the basics, then moved to the timeline of my termination. Mr. Hale, when did you first discuss terminating your father? I don't recall a specific date. Let me refresh your memory. This is an email from you to Megan Hale dated February 10th, 2024. It says, "We need to start building a case against Dad. He's not going to leave voluntarily." Do you remember writing this? Evan looked at the email. Yes. The announcement came in an internal email. Subject line, "Organizational changes." It was short, professional. Effective immediately, Megan Hale has resigned from her position as HR manager to pursue other opportunities. We thank her for her years of service and wish her well in her future endeavors. Interim HR leadership will be announced next week. No explanation, no context, just gone. I found out from a former colleague who forwarded me the email. Laura read it over my shoulder. That's not a resignation, she said. That's a termination. How can you tell? The language. Effective immediately means they didn't give her notice. Pursue other opportunities is code for we couldn't fire her fast enough. And the lack of any personal statement from her means she didn't leave voluntarily. They pushed her out. Yes. Probably gave her a choice. Resign or be terminated. Take the graceful exit or have it on your record. Why now? Because the summary judgment hearing is in 3 days. Because the depositions made her look terrible. Because keeping her on staff makes the company look complicit. They're cutting their losses. I should have felt something. Satisfaction, vindication, something. But I didn't. I just felt tired. What about Evan? I asked. No announcement about him. But I'd guess he's next. She was right. 2 days later, Evan was reassigned. Not fired, reassigned, moved out of operations, shifted to a lateral role in vendor relations. A nothing job. The kind of position you give someone when you want them to quit, but can't legally fire them. The announcement was buried in a routine org chart update. Most people wouldn't have noticed. But I noticed. Laura noticed. And Evan definitely noticed. The summary judgment hearing was held in a small courtroom downtown, Judge Patricia Henning presiding. She was in her early 60s. Sharp. No nonsense. She'd read the briefs, all of them. You could tell by the annotations in her copy. David presented our argument. 20 minutes, clean, focused. He walked the judge through the evidence, the emails, the depositions, the timeline. He argued that the defamation claim was baseless because every statement I'd made was true and supported by documentation. The company's lawyer, Kent Vassar, stood up to respond. He tried to argue that truth wasn't a complete defense, that my statements, even if true, were made with malicious intent, that I'd coordinated with former employees to create a false narrative of systematic abuse. Judge Henning interrupted him. Counselor, I've read the depositions. Your clients admitted under oath to coordinating Mr. Hale's termination. They admitted to using personal email accounts to avoid company oversight. They admitted to billing fraud. Where exactly is the false narrative? Kent shifted. Your Honor, the context of those statements. Context doesn't change facts. Did your client or did your client not coordinate with family members to terminate Mr. Hale? They discussed it, yes, but... And did those discussions occur while one of those family members was billing the company for legal advice? That's a separate issue, Your Honor. Is it? Because it seems pretty relevant to whether this lawsuit is retaliatory. You're suing a man for telling the truth about how he was treated. And the evidence supports his version of events, so explain to me why this case shouldn't be dismissed. Kent tried. He argued procedural points. He argued that some issues were for a jury to decide. He argued that dismissal would be premature. Judge Henning wasn't buying it. I'll take this under advisement, she said, but I'm inclined to grant the motion. The plaintiff's claims appear to lack merit, and the evidence suggests this lawsuit was filed in retaliation for Mr. Hale's truthful statements about his termination. I'll issue a written ruling within 2 weeks. We left the courthouse. David was cautiously optimistic. She's going to grant it. I'd bet money on it. And if she does, then the lawsuit is over, dismissed with prejudice. They can't refile, and we can pursue attorney's fees. How much? A lot. We've billed over 200 hours. At my rates, that's close to $70,000, plus costs, discovery, depositions, filings. You're looking at $90,000 total. Will they pay? They'll have to. If the judge grants the motion, she'll likely order them to pay, and if they don't, we can enforce the judgment. Laura smiled. So we win. Looks like it. But I didn't feel like I'd won. Not yet. Winning would require something more, something final. The ruling came 8 days later. 14 pages, thorough, scathing. Judge Henning granted the motion in full. She found that every statement I'd made was supported by evidence. She found that the company's lawsuit was retaliatory and filed in bad faith. She dismissed the case with prejudice. And she ordered the company to pay $92,000 in attorney's fees and costs within 30 days. The final paragraph was the best part. This court is deeply troubled by the conduct of the plaintiff and its agents. The evidence presented demonstrates a coordinated effort to terminate a long-tenured employee without cause, followed by a meritless lawsuit designed to silence that employee from speaking truthfully about his treatment. Such conduct undermines the integrity of the judicial system and wastes the court's resources. The plaintiff is cautioned that any further filings of this nature may result in sanctions. David called me an hour after the ruling was posted. We won. I know. No, I mean we really won. This is about as strong a dismissal as you can get. The judge didn't just rule in our favor, she eviscerated them. What happens now? They have 30 days to pay. If they don't, we file for enforcement. But they'll pay. They don't want more bad press. And Jordan? The bar investigation is ongoing, but with this ruling, his license suspension is almost guaranteed. The judge's finding that he participated in bad faith litigation is going to be part of the record. Good. Thomas, you should feel good about this. You fought. You won. You proved you were right. I know, but it's not over. What do you mean? I mean they're still out there. Evan, Megan, Jordan. They lost in court, but they haven't lost everything. Not yet. David was quiet for a moment. What are you planning? I'm not planning anything, I'm just waiting. For what? For them to realize what they've lost. I hung up. Laura looked at me. You're not done, are you? No. What's left? The reckoning. She didn't ask what I meant. She knew. 2 weeks after the ruling, the company issued a press release. It announced a comprehensive review of HR practices and policies and the hiring of an external consultant to assess workplace culture and employee relations. It was damage control, nothing more, but it was also an admission, implicit, buried in corporate speak. But there, Allison Porter wrote one more article. Judge slams company in defamation lawsuit, orders payment of legal fees. It quoted from the ruling. It summarized the timeline. It noted that Megan had resigned and Evan had been reassigned. It ended with a quote from me. I hope this sends a message that employees have a right to speak the truth about their treatment without being silenced by expensive litigation. The article was shared 800 times in the first day. Former employees started reaching out. Not to me, to Allison, to David, to anyone who would listen. They told their own stories, their own versions of what had happened under Megan's watch. The pattern was undeniable now, public, permanent. The company couldn't bury it anymore. And then, a month after the ruling, I got a message on LinkedIn. From Megan. Dad, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need you to know I'm sorry. For all of it. I made mistakes. I let my pride get in the way. I let Jordan and Evan convince me that we were doing the right thing. I know now that we weren't. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted you to know that I understand what I did was wrong. I hope someday we can talk. Megan. I stared at the message for a long time. Laura read it over my shoulder. What are you going to do? I don't know. Do you believe her? I don't know that either. Do you want to believe her? I thought about it, about the years before all this, about the daughter she used to be, before the job, before the power, before the smile. Maybe, I said. But it doesn't matter, not yet. Why not? Because words are cheap. She needs to prove it. How? I don't know, but I'll know it when I see it. I didn't reply to the message. Not that day, not the next week, not the week after. I let it sit, unanswered, unacknowledged. Let her wonder, let her wait. Evan never reached out, not a message, not a call, nothing. I heard through the grapevine that he'd quit, taken a job at a smaller firm, a step down, a big step down. Jordan's law license was suspended 6 months after the ruling. The bar cited his billing fraud, his conflicts of interest, his participation in bad faith litigation. The suspension was for 2 years. By the time he'd be eligible to practice again, his reputation would be destroyed. I heard he and Megan separated, not divorced, just separated, living apart, trying to figure out what was left of their lives. I didn't reach out to any of them. I didn't gloat, didn't send messages, didn't twist the knife. I just let the consequences play out, because that was the point. Not revenge, consequences. They'd spent years believing they were untouchable. That authority meant immunity, that they could do whatever they wanted as long as they controlled the narrative. And now, they knew different. Now, they knew that systems could be turned, that documentation mattered, that truth, when backed by evidence, was more powerful than any lawsuit or press release or carefully worded email. They'd learned the lesson I'd been trying to teach them for years. Actions have consequences, and consequences don't care about your intentions. 6 months after the ruling, I got a call from the company's new CEO, a woman named Catherine Prell. She'd been brought in to clean up the mess. Mr. Hale, I wanted to reach out personally to apologize for how you were treated. I've reviewed your file. I've read the depositions. I've spoken with former employees. What happened to you was unacceptable, and I want to make it right. How do you plan to do that? I'd like to offer you your job back, not your old position, a better one. Senior Vice President of Operations, full restoration of seniority, back pay for the time you were terminated, and a formal public apology from the company. Why would I want to come back? Because you built this company. You know it better than anyone, and we need people like you to rebuild the culture. You mean you need me to provide credibility, to show employees and clients that you're serious about change? She didn't deny it. Yes, that too. I thought about it. Imagined walking back into that building, sitting in an office, seeing the people who'd watched me get fired and said nothing. No, I said. Can I ask why? Because I'm done. I've spent 26 years building something I thought mattered, and I watched it get torn apart by people who cared more about power than principles. I'm not interested in rebuilding that. Then what are you interested in? Moving on. Fair enough, but the offer stands. If you change your mind. I won't. She thanked me for my time and hung up. Laura looked at me. You're really done? Yeah. No regrets? None. What now? I smiled. Now, we live. And we did.